Dawson Rider Wiki.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here with my review of Lupinranger vs. Patranger episode 19. This should be a quicker review. This episode wasn't too eventful. It was a Patranger focused episode, which inherently I find a little bit less interesting usually, but it was just kind of an average filler. You know, it was exacerbated by the fact that we're getting the Sixth Ranger debut next week. So it's just kind of like, let's go! But yeah, so it was focused mainly on Green. It was a pretty straightforward story of, you know, which has not only been done in Sentai or Toku, but in any kind of show with cops or anybody has a job where they're fired for some reason, and they're told, you know, you better not see anywhere near this case. And then there's some reason why, you know, they have to get involved in the case, but it could cost them their job, and they have to do it anyway, because they're so good. That's what the episode was. Like, basically, he stops this guy from doing an assault or a mugging or something at the beginning, and then he wants revenge on him later, and he turns out to be a gangler. And when they're having a meeting with the chief of police, which is like the classic, stubborn, just kind of jerk boss chief of police, he basically uses invisible powers to make it seem like he's doing all this stuff to him, like pouring, was it custard on him or something? And he's like, oh, you're not fired, but you're suspended. And for some reason, they can put him on house arrest when they're suspended. And then the Lupinrangers were, like, barely involved this week. Like, they had a couple scenes at the restaurant when he poured the stuff on him, and then when they visited him at his house, and then, of course, they showed up at the end last act, to get the Lupin collection piece, and said, like, you know, basically, you take care of this, Goody, you go with them. And that was it. It was probably one of the least involved Lupinranger episodes. But, you know, it was classic. He figures something out and he's like, oh, I gotta go stop him. And the chief's like, no, you don't do it because I'm the chief. And then he's like, I have to do it because it's right. And, like, he had this line where he said, I can't protect my job. Or my job isn't to protect my job. Or my purpose isn't to protect my job. And I was like, oh, is he gonna say it's to protect the people? He's like, it's to protect people's happiness. I'm like, no, you should have said it's to protect the people. It would have sounded cooler. But yeah. And Hilltop helps him out by giving him his changer back, and Hilltop's like, oh, well, I get fired too. And, you know, they destroy the monster, and of course he's not fired because they find out the Invisi-Guy did it. And yeah, it was very straightforward. Not like, you know, lack of enjoyment or anything like that. It's just, it was average. There was really nothing too special to write home about. The only real thing of worthwhile note I found was that the villain of the week, like his human form, looked like a D-list Toku villain. Like, he looked like any number of Toku villains, like Gentoku or Heart Roimute or Juzo, like as if he was auditioning for all those roles, like the generic sort of main-ish villain badass from a writer or Sentai, but he was like the D-list version, so he like made it into this episode. But that was the only thing that I really found worth note. Like, again, it wasn't terrible, but it really wasn't anything special. It was very average filler, and it wasn't a bad focus. Like, of course, it's really a nice character moment for him that he's willing to risk his job to do the right thing. But again, with the Patrangers, I'm just not as invested. Like, I'm not saying they're bad. Again, I like them, but it's like the Lupinrangers, I'm so tied into them with like their reasoning and their bond with each other. Where the Patrangers, it always feels like we're good people because we're good people, and that's not a bad thing. It's just I don't feel it, if that makes any sense, as much. But yeah, overall, very average episode. I would probably give it a 7 for this week. Next week is going to be exciting though. Lupin Pattern X is going to be debuting. I was actually going to do a news video on the fact that we saw their actors, but then time got away from me. And now, in like 5 days, we're going to see him, so I'll get to talk about anything I was going to say there. So, look forward to next week. I am looking forward to it. Sixth Ranger debuts are always exciting. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. It is Dawson Rider, signing out.